All right, well, I don't know whether or not to cry or to be happy because all the mobile home parks have been sold. To some of you, it might be old news because you might follow me other places or I maybe dropped some hints on here before. But we sold all the mobile home parks, or I should say the last four that we had. In this video, I'm going to tell you why we sold, and then I'm going to show you what we bought, which is pretty exciting. But we'll get to that. First thing I want to do is talk about the mobile home parks themselves. So we are going to jump into my screen here and show you a little bit about the parks. So if you guys don't know, the model that we went after, and this is one of the parks that we owned, the model that we went after is we had everyone own their own home, and we more or less just owned the dirt and collected lot rent. So we were in charge of maintaining the roads, mowing the common areas, the infrastructure under the ground, so like the sewer lines, the water lines, things like that. And everyone else was responsible for their own home. So their own toilets, furnaces, water heaters, all that stuff. So that's one of the beautiful things about mobile home parks is your headaches can be lower in that area as far as repairs and maintenance, but could be higher in other areas. So it kind of depends. But that's the model we went after. We wanted everyone to own their own mobile homes. So this right here was the first mobile home park I bought. And I got interested in parks back in 2016 when I went to a boot camp about investing in mobile home parks. And I decided back in 2016 that I had to buy a park. Well, this was the first one that I ended up finding, and it was actually on an auction. All the other parks came from more off-market, like direct relationships with sellers from mailing them letters, or I had one where a bank helped me find it, a relationship through the bank. So this was a 36-space park, and this was an absolutely beautiful park. Loved it because it was all city water, city sewer. Everyone had their own electric meter, gas meter, and water meter. So as the owner, we didn't pay any utilities. And this is the one that I'm going to cry about in a couple years and wonder why in the world did I sell this thing? So let's not dwell on that too long because I might get emotional. But here is what we would do. We would buy these parks, and sometimes they would have vacant lots, and we wanted to fill them. So I would scour Facebook Marketplace, and I would find something like this. This was a mobile home that someone was selling in the middle of nowhere. I probably paid $12,000 to $15,000 for this thing. And then here we are moving it into one of our parks, backing it into place. And then this is what it would have looked like after we were done. Now, here's something I want to throw out there real quick because this is something that people don't think about. So a mobile home park is valued on the income. Yeah, this is a really nice home, but we would oftentimes even buy older, junkier mobile homes that might only be worth $5,000. We would bring that home into the park, fix it all up. We might have $25,000 all into it. And then we would actually sometimes lose money when we sold that home. The home portion wasn't a lucrative business, buying them, fixing up and selling them. But overall, if you look at the big picture, even bringing that $5,000 mobile home in, after we're able to collect that, $225 of lot rent every month, it brings the overall value of the park up by, $25,000, $35,000 based on that income of the lot rent. So it was really important to just fill the lots and, get as many people in there as we could. So that is the story of that home. Here's another one that we bought in the middle of nowhere that was, super run down, and then we were able to bring it to our park, get it all set back up, get it skirted, clean it up, the inside, completely redo it, and then it looks so much better. So this is one of my favorite shots here of just how much better a freshly sealed road looks. So this was before, and that was after. Just makes a world of difference. And what's incredible is when you start to put money into these parks, how everyone just naturally cares more about the property. When the owner of the property doesn't care, a lot of the residents won't either. So, as an owner, invest in the property, let the residents know like, hey, we care about, the appearance of this property, and it's going to pay off in the long run. So there's another shot of another park that we owned. You can see the roads were sealed there. And then here is an example of maybe the inside of one of them. This was one that we did. Very old home, small home, really nasty rundown. We probably got this thing for almost free and cleaned it up. They're not spectacular. This is not a, $200,000 house. It's still a mobile home. It's still a very affordable place to live. But new cabinets, new countertops, new flooring, paint, carpet. This one might have got a new furnace, new blinds. I think that's the original tub, but we put all new surround around it, a new toilet, small, new vanity. And then don't hate on the carpet squares. They actually are nice because if, one of them gets ruined, then you can just pull it out and replace it. So that gives you an idea of what the mobile homes look like when we remodel them. So this next slide, I kind of gave it away, but let me explain real quick before I show you the next slide and talk about what we bought. So if you don't know, when you make a big profit, you pay tax on that. It's called it's capital gains. You have capital gains. So we were, talking to our accountant and figuring out, okay, we're going to be paying a very, very large tax bill. How can we kick this can down the road, save the money on the taxes right now, use that money to invest and keep growing? And that's when we decided to do a 1031 exchange, which actually I had already done one in the past. And that's when we bought the 142 unit storage facility. So I was already familiar with the process and decided, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Let's try to kick the tax bucket down the road and do a 1031 exchange. So we decided to, start the hunt. We were actually under contract on these mobile home parks to sell them for like 8 months. So I was, calling apartments, storage facilities, and this whole time interest rates were going like this. This was like a very kind of scary time. And I'm not going to lie, I did not think the parks were going to sell. So I was not doing as good of a job as I should have been of finding a replacement property. And we got down to, the point where I was like, yep, there's no way this thing's going to close. And the buyer reaches out and says, hey, I got approval. We're good to go. Let's close this thing. And so we end up closing, and I still did not have a property identified. And you have 45 days from the point you sell to the point where you have to identify to the IRS that you have your replacement properties. So I was a little bit worried, and I had a couple different properties I thought we were going to buy, a couple apartment buildings, and they fell apart last minute. So I talked to a buddy of mine who is, he's a big hunter, manages farms, and we're talking, and he thought that farm ground would be a good option, and he put me in touch with one of his agents who does land. And that's how we came up with this farm here. So the economics behind a farm don't really make sense. If you have a lot of money and you just need to put your money in a stable asset, farm ground can be great. But for example, this is 257 acres that we bought. It's got 150 acres tillable, which a lot of these trees have been cleaned up because it's now being farmed. And on this 150 acres that is being farmed, we only bring in 30 grand of revenue a year. So, run the math on that. 257 acre farm, at, between $6,000 and $10,000 an acre. If you finance that with putting 20% down and financing, 80%, that $30,000 of income doesn't even touch the mortgage payments. So, the economics are not great. Thankfully, we were able to, sell the parks for such a great price that we pretty much paid all cash for this farm. So we have a ton of equity. Our mortgage payment is, we owe like, we finance, I think, a little around 120,000 on this farm. So not bad at all. But, why did we end up selling the mobile home parks? The answer is we just got, offered a price that we couldn't refuse. It was, way, way over what I thought they were worth. And, in hindsight, I probably didn't value them as much as I should have. However, I still think that we got an absolute premium, for what we had at the time. So, overall, I'm sad to see them go. I'm excited though to see what's going to happen in the future, because I should be able to, double or triple the size of my real estate portfolio over the next year or two, because we made so much on selling the parks. So even though they are great assets, I'm going to take a few $1 million worth of real estate and turn it into, $6 or $7 million worth of real estate, which is, going to be a lot of fun. Farm ground, again, never thought I'd own it. Does it make financial sense? Probably not. But what, will happen is we have all this equity in the farm, and I'll just use it as my equity to buy other stuff. So if I find a $1 million storage facility, I'll just go to the bank and say, hey, for my $200,000 down, or my 20% down on that $1 million property, can we just leverage against the farm? And I've done that before. It works great. And so that's what we'll do for the next, year or two, until I use up all that equity. And then, at some point I'll decide, okay, do we keep the farm or do we sell it? And we'll go from there. But every time I'm out there, I love it. Here's a couple of shots of like right before we bought it. So this is when they had just tilled up the ground for the first time. It had been pasture, but every time I'm out there, it's so peaceful. It's so pretty. I'm always seeing deer and wildlife out there. And another thing I'll mention real quick, you see this gravel road here. Let me go back out to this photo. It's got a gravel road all along the south side of the property. So you have really good access to get in. And if I want, I can even split the farm up in like multiple pieces, or, there's different options when you have road frontage along most of the farm. What's also cool is from this point to this point, it's almost exactly 1 mile. So I haven't walked that full 1 mile yet, but every time I'm out there, I see something a little bit new, and it's a lot of fun. So yeah, that's why we sold the mobile home parks. Looks like my computer's about to die, so I should probably end this here. But I think that moving forward, we're going to really double down on storage facilities. We've really got our systems and processes dialed in right now on storage, and mobile home parks have been great. They were, fantastic investment. So glad I did it. The stories that I have from these things, unbelievable. But yeah, I'm excited for the new adventures ahead, and this whole selling the parks, buying the farm, it's just another adventure. That's the beautiful thing about real estate is you have no idea, you might be in single families and you might end up owning, Walgreens or Starbucks, who knows? So you got to keep it interesting. But yeah, that's all I really want to talk about in this video. If you guys have more questions about the 1031 process or some of the numbers behind it all, or, any questions, drop a comment below, or find me on other social media. But until then, guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.